So I especially want to talk to the younger of our young people. Anyone who has any doubt about why they believe. And that's what I'm going to do today, is to tell you what I believe as a father, as a grandfather, as a shepherd, and as a teacher. I have to do this quite often as I teach the gospel to those who don't believe. And the Bible even tells us, be ready to give an answer for those that ask a reason of the hope that you have. So when I think about that question about why do I believe? You know, I was out of a class of 400 seniors in my high school. I was the top math student and top science student. When I go to China, there's a lot of people there say, why would you believe in God? They don't think any scientist could believe in God. Most of you probably don't know that I majored in chemistry. I have a scientific mind, a logical mind, a mathematic mind. I hate superstition. I want what is true, exact, and correct. I can start by saying why I believe. I had a mother who believed. And I sat on her knee and learned the Bible and stories about great heroes of the faith in the Old and New Testament times. They pointed out to me nature, every opportunity, driving in the car, reading books, anything we did. There's always a pointing to what God made, the creation that was before us. And that's something we need to think about why I believe. When you think about the Bible in Romans chapter 1, Paul says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. How? For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power, His divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood by what has been made, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Paul goes on in this chapter later and he describes his generation, what it was like. And if you read those words and didn't think it was written by Paul 2,000 years ago, you would think he was describing the culture we live in right now. People that are unthankful to God and don't recognize His existence. How corrupt and how evil and how stupid they are. And how much they need a Savior. As a child who has a great mother and father like I did, to teach them about God. And my belief is based upon their testimony for a while. But as you get older and you have influence by other teachers, those that have PhD by their name, we begin to question and to ask and to even doubt what our parents have told us. And that's okay. You've got to make it your own. You look at the world and you see many people have good parents that love them that have told them wrong things. And so it can be with us. My parents didn't know everything, and yours don't either. You have to make a choice and a decision about, is there a God? And if there is a God, How do you know for sure? What is he like? How do we know more about him? And do we believe in those sources? In the example of Jesus Christ, who was God, who came to this earth, the example he lived, and the testimony about him. Why do we believe that? It'd take many lessons to do a thorough job of this. But I'll at least start a little bit with you in reason today when I remember as just a small boy, when somebody told me that the universe, how big it was, and how it went on and on and on and tried to describe to me exactly how big it was. I would lay on my bed at night thinking about the stars, then the galaxies, then the super galaxies. How many billions and billions of stars there were, and their light, how long it takes for their light to travel. An amazing thing to give me a headache when I was young. Lose sleep over it, trying to fathom the concept of eternity and how far things were away. You can't put a spot on a map and say, there's the end of the universe. And it keeps expanding all the time. How can you understand eternity? That God has always been and always will be. And he wants us to join us in eternity. How can you comprehend that? I remember a young Chinese lady that I actually met here in the United States who had been converted in China and came to Harding University and visited our congregation one time years ago. She told her story about her conversion, and she told about her youth. Back when China was in the 80s, when she was a child, it was dark, not bright, lit up like it is now. When I went there in 1991, I came in on a plane in Shanghai, and you couldn't tell there was a city anywhere, 20 million people below you. It was all dark. They would not even let cars turn on their lights at night. She told me she would go up to the top of her apartment building, about 8 stories up, and there was a flat roof. And she used to go up there with a blanket and lay down and look up at the stars. She didn't have parents that told her about God. No one in her country she knew about God. And she looked at those stars. Something in her heart woke up. And she realized this did not come by accident. This beauty and this majesty was something that man could have nothing to do with. It was that vast, it was that great, it was that huge, it was that beautiful. It was that designed that she saw in life. She got a shortwave radio somehow, illegally. She's able to get some Bible lessons from Hong Kong and learn more about God. And she tells everybody about it, about God. I want you to think, when you look at this verse that David wrote, remember he was a shepherd. It was dark in Israel 3,000 years ago when David was alive. He'd be out many times at night. When he considered the heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon, the stars which you set in place, what's man that you're mindful of him? The Son of Man that you care for him. You made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. You made him rule over the works of your hands. You put everything under his feet. Do you ever think about how small you are? How insignificant you are? There's planet Earth. You're not even on it. You're on the other half. What if you were in Beijing in China? Can you see yourself? Can you see your city? Can you see your neighborhood? And yet, God knows the number of hairs on your head. He knows you individually and wants you to be His child. That's the God who made all of this. You got this whole universe. Our scientists, our astronomers, our space people spend a lot of time trying to find life somewhere else. They might. They won't ruin my faith if they do. I don't expect it. Man is the center of God's attention. He made all that you see for you, not only to enjoy and to have pleasure with, but also to see Him and to see His power and His glory. And what effort He went to impress you, to draw you to Him, to show His love. There's the earth. Pretty big. I've been around it equal to 40 times. I'm going to be a million-miler with United Airlines after my next trip. It's a pretty big place. But there's Jupiter. There's the earth. Jupiter is so big that if you weigh 150 pounds here on the earth, you'd weigh 350 pounds. You could hardly move around. And there was Jupiter so big, I read this week about everybody's scared about some rock heading toward Earth. About a 1 in 100 million chance that it hit us. It would be a super hit, and there'll be a lot of streak of light going through there and a huge explosion. It's happened before. But you know that if Jupiter wasn't there as a magnet, like a gravity, to pull those rocks into Jupiter, in fact, on this very picture, I don't even see it. I can see it on my computer. I don't know why. But anyway, there were some dark spots on that picture where there had been a several rocks, meteorites hit, caused a huge explosion on Jupiter. There it is, right there. Those black scars represent explosions on Jupiter. Happened all in just a few days. There's our sun. There's Jupiter. Here's the earth. Do you feel significant at all? There's another sun, the big one. It's another star. Here is our sun compared to it. Here's another sun compared to that sun. Our sun is 1 pixel on this picture. There's a galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. Your picture is right here. It's just 1 star out of a billion in that 1 galaxy. And there's a billion galaxies that we know of, and we discover new ones all the time. 10 to the 11th stars per galaxy times 10 to the 11th galaxies is equal to 10 to the 22nd. I can't pronounce that number. I didn't know it when I was studying math at the university. There's many stars as grains of dry sand on all the beaches of the earth. The heavens declare the glory of God. They describe His handiwork. They show it to you, how powerful He is, how majestic He is. He deserves our worship. When we consider the heavens, then think about, what am I compared to those things? It should make me fall upon my knees. It should make me lift up my hands toward Him and want to know Him. What does He want Why am I here? When I tell you this morning why I believe, one of the things why I believe is I need a purpose for living. When I go out and I see, walk the streets even of Longmont, when I go into a city like Beijing with 25, 30 million people, there's one out further west you haven't even heard of before. There's 36 million people. All these individuals, what is life all about? And one of the questions in the English corner, I say, why are you here? Do you understand the purpose you have? I never thought about it. I don't know why I'm here. And a lot of times people get lost, relationships that Ed talked about. You can't believe how lonely many people in this world are. Following God, listening to God is really all about relationships. Relationships with Him, relationships with a wife, a husband, children, family, brothers, sisters, neighbors, citizens of our country, even people in other parts of the world. Relationships. God put us here to have a relationship with Him. He had one glorious Son, Romans 8 verse 28 tells us. And if we believe and we want to be like that Son, we can become a child of God. He can be our Father. Life on our earth is very unique. How did we get here? Either matter is eternal or God is eternal. Many scientists are convinced that our universe began with one enormous explosion of energy and light, which we now call the Big Bang. This was the singular start to everything that exists, the beginning of the universe, the start of space, the initial start of time itself. Astrophysicist Robert Jastrow, a self-described agnostic, he said, the seed of everything that has happened in the universe was planted in that first instant. Every star, every planet, every living creature in the universe came into being as the result of events that were set in motion in the moment of the cosmic explosion. The universe flashed into being, and we cannot find out what caused that to happen. To some people, we are here due to a huge explosion. Have you ever seen any order in an explosion? When you see a bomb blast a building, when you see our allies in the films of World War II, Germany, what it looked like after being bombed, after you see an explosion, do you see any order in it at all? It's chaos. But what I see when I look at the universe, when I look at you, when I look at me in a mirror, I see design. Every single little part of my body, there's a purpose. How did it come about? How does it have function? My hands, the ability to grab a baseball and fling it as far as I can go. The eye cooperates with the hand to pick up something. How did that all just come about from an explosion? There's two systems of faith. Everybody talks about, oh, you Christians have faith and you got your belief. They don't understand they have a set of religion too. Materialism. There's no God in it. Matter is all there is. There's no morality at all. We're just all atoms. We're all physical. Evolution is how we got here and how life came into being. It started from dead dirt, chemicals, rocks, gases, and somehow life came to being. No one knows how. Nobody's ever seen it happen. It's never happened scientifically that we know of. That life just came out of nothing, came out of something that was dead. There was a time when scientists believed that life came from dead matter. Spontaneous combustion. You'd have some meat, a few days you'd have larvae of flies come out of the meat. Pasteur did experiments and proved that the larva came from flies getting in the meat, and they laid eggs. Life comes from life. That is a basic law, the fundamental law of biology. Evolution contradicts the fundamental laws of every single science we study. Every single one. I taught 2 years of high school biology. It's in the textbooks. Life always comes from life. Biogenesis, first law of biology. We have no record, no eyewitness, no experiment that's produced anything else. Life comes from life. If this is true, if that religion is true, there is no purpose for us being here. Eat, drink, and be merry today because tomorrow we die. That's it. There's no morality. There's no one to tell you what's right and wrong. Everybody has their own God, their own opinion. One atheist says we exist because one group of fishes had a peculiar fin anatomy that could transform into legs and land creatures, because the earth never froze entirely during an ice age, and because a small and fragile species arising in Africa 250,000 years ago had managed so far to survive by hook or by crook. We may yearn for a higher answer, but none exist. Do you realize how many, the possibility? I took a course at the university in mathematics called probability. And we studied formulas. Okay, you flip a coin, that's pretty easy. Half a chance, right? 50-50. But you can get in a situation like that, and what the evolutionists teach about somehow life being coming out of a bunch of chemicals and some heat or energy is absolutely zero. There's so many zeros to the 10th power. It just is not going to happen, the probability. It's not mathematically possible. God exists. There's a spiritual and a physical part to man. There's a creation and there's a purpose while we're here. And when you believe in God and you have that purpose in your heart, it straightens your life up. It helps you know how to live. It tells you how to do your job. It tells you how to treat your family. It helps you how to be honest and have integrity and be dependable. It teaches you how to be, as Jesus is our example, to follow Him. And God can protect us from having to learn by trial and error. You can learn the hard way. You can do things, and you can put things in your mouth, and you can smoke things, and you can do all kinds of things to your body. And you can treat people a certain way, and you'll burn from it. You'll get hurt, and you'll hurt others, and you'll learn maybe and get better and not do that again. But our God has given us information about how to live our lives, and there is moral and there's bad things. There's a way to live your life to make it successful and to bless others and to have good relationships. If we believe it, we need to live it. And we need to dedicate ourselves to Him right now. Both of those systems are based upon philosophy. Both of them have some facts. The facts are the same. The fossils are the same. There's different interpretations of those facts. What's more reasonable to believe? One scientist said if anyone claims to know how life began on Earth 3.45 billion years ago, they're either deluded or they're naive. Nobody knows. Darwinism, evolution is a fact, they say, some of them, just as life itself is a fact. But how it is accomplished is still a theory, for the processes are far from being understood, especially in the areas of evolutionary divergence and the development of groups above the species level. I want to tell you something, young people. When evolution is taught in elementary school, and when it's taught in middle school, when it's taught in high school, when it's taught at the regular college level, bachelor's degree. It is taught as fact. But then you get into the PhD level, and they fight each other all the time about what's happening and what made it happen. None of them agree. Read their papers. I had a great loss in China 20 years ago. I had collected for 30 years. This is before computers. I collected articles out of the newspaper and magazines on scientific journals describing how this came about, how this life form formed, just anything to do with science and how we got here and things of that nature. And I collected those things since I was 20 years old till I was 50. And I carried them with me. I had a folder about that thick to China. And I would just pull those pages out and I'd show them, here's a scientist, a PhD, here's what he believes about the sun, how we get the energy from it. Here's another one that says just the opposite. In fact, scientists have changed their viewpoint on how the sun gives energy 3 different times since I've been alive. Well, excuse me, since 1900, not my life. I have a PhD by his name, article, and pictures, drawings. You've seen, here's a small monkey. Oh, here's a gorilla, and then here's a human. See those pictures lined up in order. He believed that we all evolved from reptiles, and he had pictures to back it up, all the way up the scale, from a little salamander all the way up to man. You think I'm crazy? Well, it's him. He that did it, okay? It's in the paper, maybe a Denver paper. They don't all agree. Don't let it wow you over because a textbook says it, because some teacher believes it. They're wrong on family relationships. They're wrong that anybody can get married. Okay. That marriage is for anybody who wants to do it. Not for men and women, for 2 men, 2 women. That's what you're being taught. It's not true. I lost that precious package. It was in my briefcase. At a busy bus station in Hangzhou, China. I put it down for a second to give the lady my ticket, and when I reached down, it was gone. My briefcase was locked, that whoever stole it, they had to tear it open to get in it. There was absolutely nothing of any value money-wise that he got out of it, but it made me cry. Of course, there's plenty of information like that available today. The internet's pretty easy to get the things back. There is microevolution. We do get different colored fish. There's some small changes that take place. And really, a lot of times the textbooks confuse. They use these illustrations, the changes that can be made, to try to get you to believe this, that snakes come from fish. Never been proven. There's no scientific evidence for that at all. Micro goes straight across the page. Macro goes down that page. Micro is true. Macro, there's no evidence for that at all. One man said, all of us who study the origin of life find that the more we look at it, the more we feel it is too complex to have evolved anywhere. We all believe it as an article of faith that life evolved from dead matter on this planet. It is just that its complexity is so great, it's hard to imagine that it did. In effect, much of the evolution of the major groups of animals has to be taken on trust. They get mad at us because we have faith. The evidence that supports it is not sufficiently strong to allow us to consider it anything more than a working hypothesis. Charles Darwin letter said, when we discuss the details, we can prove that no one species has changed. We cannot prove that a single species has changed, nor can we prove that the supposed changes are beneficial, which is the groundwork of the theory. You know, I've asked large audiences of people here in the States. I've asked it over in China, large groups of young people. How many have you read Charles Darwin's book, Origin of the Species? I've done it to thousands of people. I've not found one single person that's read him yet they believe in Darwin. I have read Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species. I have to admit to you that I think that in a lot of ways, he was an honest man. He gave his theory. He really believed it was a good explanation of how we got here. But he thought that eventually he would be exonerated, that what he thought would be proved. When we have enough fossil record available, it will prove that I was right. But he also made some admissions in that book, some fears. I'll skip over that, so I've already sort of covered it. Let me get down here to another quote by Charles Darwin. Well, I skipped it, I think. Anyway, I'll go ahead right here just for a second to close out. This is a quote from Darwin. To suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberrations, could have been formed by natural selection, seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. I remember reading one page in Darwin's book, says it made him sick. It made him sick. What does he mean? It made him sick when he thought of the human eye. He could not, in thinking about how the first eye came into existence and how it could have evolved to what our eyes are like and other nature, he could not comprehend how his theory could explain that. And there were so many different areas that way, different parts of our body and functions and the way animals function. The human eye was designed with intelligence and purpose, just a result of thousands and lucky mutations. Is that what it is? You know, the only way that Darwin has, or any scientist today has, for something new to enter the animal world, some new animals to come into existence, it comes about by a changing of cells called a mutation. So you get better and better. We go from the one-celled animal to a human being with millions and millions and millions of mutations over millions and millions and millions of years. And finally we got man. Something that's very powerful, very strong, very smart, ability to design things themselves. The only problem is we know of so few good mutations. Mutations is the cause of cancer. Mutations causes bad things to happen. It causes aberrations in nature. It doesn't build, it tears down. It was so strange to me when a few years ago they were talking about at the Arctic region, the atmosphere, how it protects us from the ozone and the ozone there layer, or what it is. Just anyway, the bad rays of the sun can cause cancer and cause mutations. Everybody's all concerned about, oh, we're going to get all this bad stuff. All the mutations are going to come and human beings are going to cease to exist. Wait a minute, that's how we got here. According to them, it's through mutations. If mutations got us here to where we are, why are we afraid of them? It's a big contradiction. It's hypocritical to teach things like that. One of my favorite things at English Corner in China is to pull out my camera. And I asked them, did this camera, was it made or did it come about by accident? Oh, it's made. It's designed. It says right there, Fuji. Those engineers, they made that camera. Then I ask them, what's more complex, a camera or the human eye? Without fail. I've asked that question on how many times to how many people. Every single time I ask it, everybody says, oh, the eye is much more complex than a camera. But to think that the eye came about by accident, it's not logical. But the beauty in China is, I've had kids go home, they come to my room privately sometime, and they'll say to me, I could not sleep all night thinking about what you said yesterday. It's just a simple argument about the design of the eye. Okay, young people, I come to you on Father's Day because I love you. I got lots more I'd like to say to you, but I hope this will help you to get grounded, to be serious about who you are, why you're here. There is a God, and if there is a God, there's plenty of evidence for, then what does He want you to do? Why are you here? Why did He make you? Do you want to be His child, or do you want to be a rebel against the God of the universe? He wants you. He loves you. He wants you to be His child. There's no better time to make up your life to serve Him than today. I became a Christian when I was 11. I knew about God before that, but I became aware of my sin and my great need for Him. I never regret that decision. And that one decision, once you make that one decision, then your decisions are helped along every step of your way as long as you have God in your life. He will help you through those difficult times. He will answer your questions. He will help you on the job. He will help you in your family. He will help you deal with sin in your life and the life of other people. Your relationships will be exactly better, and you'll be a happier person here and, of course, in eternity.